It's thinking about it now. My event is starting. This is regarding 365 going live on YouTube, going live on Periscope. And we'll turn that down there. So graceful, but this is the best way to do, isn't it, Dan? Right. It's using this great technology called Sept that allows us to dual stream. And we'll turn that off there. So this is Daryl as a service for regarding 365. We do have to make a point about this, Daniel. Welcome, yes, Daniel. Welcome back from your weekend and all the stuff that happened over in the States. And what did you get up to?
We played some football, watched some football, American football.
Oh, football.
Yes.
Not soccer, not rugby
soccer.
or footy.
Yeah, don't
which
get
is
me
Aussie
on the don't get me. Well, and rugby and Aussie rule, that's some awesome sport and much respect. I did some research on soccer versus football and what's the correct term, and it kind of depends on who you ask, and so we won't get into that today. But so enjoyed the weather. We're getting some winds from. Unfortunately, here we are talking about another hurricane. We're starting to get some winds from the hurricane that has hit Florida, and it's moving up the coast now. Mm-hmm. So definitely. Again, it's not as bad as here as it is there, obviously. Tampa got hit pretty hard there.
There was a ton of periscopes that were going at the time too, and the media was picking up on them. But one couple of media people were just pointing out that storms and things these days, it's live, it's happening. We actually see that coverage from the people that are experiencing it rather than something that happens overnight. So it's just amazing.
Yeah, it goes along with that whole everything's happening now and we get to see it. And is it as bad as is it worse now than it has been? Well, this storm, it's apparently yes. But, in general, things are happening. We get to see it a whole lot more than we used to be able to see it. But definitely our thoughts and prayers for those that are in Florida right now. And power is out for a lot of people. And and I know they're having some issues. So anyway, the recovery in Texas from previous hurricane and now Florida. So hopefully they're all doing well.
Yeah. When you're without power, I mean, that really shows you how much you rely on it, doesn't it? It can happen for various reasons. If you've got hurricanes, you've got people that get massive snowfall and all the lines get weighed down and broken. But our reliance on technology, let alone just the basics, as soon as we're without it, we're definitely in need. So, I agree with you, man. Thoughts and prayers with family and people and friends and even pets, pets that had to be left behind.
That's right.
So, we have a show, our message center.
Yes.
There's a few things to talk about. And
there's some big things we need to talk about, actually.
A few things that slipped.
Yes. Well, and I think even the stuff that's official and that's in the message center now is some big stuff. So we've got a big show, and we need to be very careful so we can actually get through this all today, because there's a lot of information here.
I'll drop my screen on. So here we go. Oh, look, Steve Collier is joining us from the UK. Hey, dude. So you can see this, can't you? It's all coming through.
You can see it.
All right.
Yes, it is.
So there's our pretty message center, our active users, and this is in my demo tenant. We'll jump into the message center. It's at 125% magnification, so you can enjoy that. Let's tuck away our bar. And we'll start from the bottom up because that's what we do. So this was September the 4th, and it felt like a quiet week to start off with because we didn't have much till around sort of Wednesday, Thursday. It just sort of, it was really quiet. So our first one there about default link permissions. I think, this is quite an important thing. Like we've had this approach sometimes where things are just turned on. It's all open. Default is share stuff to the higher stability or whatever. And then there's this flip to say, actually, let's strip away those permissions. But what does this update mean for you and your customers, Dan?
Well, I think the conversation has been when you talk about rolling out 365 or any of the services, one of the first probably 3-4 conversation topics we have is the sharing in some form or fashion. That's what it comes down to. And organizations they're on the different, different scales of sharing. And I have a customer right now where we talked about sharing, and they're very cautious about sharing with external customers or external companies that they do business with, and so they want to turn sharing completely off for everything, and then evaluate how they move forward from there. And so I think what happened with 365 was completely the opposite. It's everyone should share, and oh, by the way, the default should be edit. To now, this is alerting us to talking about we can go in now and set, or this is alerting us saying we'll be able to go in and set it to only be view, for instance, instead of being able to edit and having to change that. Because frankly, I change that almost every time I do a share. Well, not every time, but probably 60% maybe. So for your organization, being able to, if your organization is heavy share, heavy edit, heavy collaboration in that way, then maybe you don't want to change it. But if your organization is more about I'm creating content and sharing it with you for you to view, then maybe you do want to change it to be view, for instance, by the default.
Yeah, it really comes down to what kind of message you're sending. And if you're looking for feedback, then you're going to send it with edit permissions. But to protect those who don't look, and we have developed a culture that just goes click next, spacebar monkey style installations. We don't look at what we're sending. So, this protects those to push out just view access. Really good update.
Yeah, it's really easy to miss that, to say share and to see that, whether it's in an Office app or whether it's in OneDrive or whatever, to see what you're actually sharing. You're sharing edit permissions by default, and you need to pay attention to that. So this helps a little bit with that.
I actually did that recently when I was trying to publish a form for my meetup at Ignite, and I published it, but I didn't change it from only share within the organization. So people were trying to fill it in and going, I can't get to them. Like, just do the pre-flight check. So always check those permissions. And what's our next announcement? Support for expletive characters in folders and file names. Hashtags and percentage signs. How often do you come across those in file names and percentage in folder names?
It's not every day, but the catch here is a lot of times when you interacting with the web, you might download something that has those special characters in it, and that's where I think causes some issue. Where I've seen the issue a lot is, those characters, especially the percent sign, is used in web a lot, and URLs and file names and stuff when you download. So this helps quite a bit for things like I'm migrating from a file share to SharePoint, or just one-offs. Users don't pay attention to file names. They just, when they find it, they click it and say upload. And so here we are, having support for it. It's great. I think anything to help with the support calls and people saying, well, I want this upload, or the wonderful OneDrive, you go to upload it, and if you don't really pay attention, it didn't really upload. It gave you an error little thing, but you've got to click it and viewed. Oh, actually, it didn't upload. So anyway, I think this is a good next step for us. Our file, the file management.
Yeah. It's I don't come across too many scenarios where it's percentage sign or hashtag, but I guess when you're titling a report that's like a #1 report, or looking at percentage drop for sales or something like that.
Yeah.
Steve Collier has a comment, and he says users are weird. They use anything and everything in their file names.
That's right.
That's right, Steve. Yes, yeah. Hashtag agree with you there.
Yes. Well, and it's funny that you call it a hashtag.
Yeah.
Because it used to be pound, and I think obviously this is one of those terms that has changed. Most people use it hashtag now. I can't remember. There was a Twitter post. Someone said they were teaching. I can't remember what it was. It'll come to me, but they were teaching, and their students had started calling it hashtag, and it's really supposed to be, the way they've been teaching it is pound, whatever. So it's very interesting. People are calling, even you, when you referred to it, it was hashtag instead of pound.
Yeah, you're right. Pounds. All
whatever.
right. Yeah, I often use it for that abbreviation at the beginning, like #1 or something like that. We're making some changes to in-client translation features of Office 365 Pro Plus. I haven't really looked too deep into that.
Heavy sigh.
Yeah? What do you say about that?
So here's the deal. We've had, and translation actually interests me a lot. In my area, in Tennessee, we have a large population from Europe, the southern part, so really toward Middle East, that have settled here. In fact, one of those ethnic groups is the largest ethnic group settling outside of their home country. So we're actually pretty diverse, and we have a lot of people who speak Spanish and some French. And anyway, so being able to communicate with them is important, and so I keep up with translation services. What this is talking about here is that they're taking that translation service that's been native to the apps and replacing it with the translator service that we've been using on our phone and stuff, that the Microsoft Translator. And while that's great, there's a couple problems with that. One is, well, there's actually three that I can think of off the top of my head. One is, if you've defined custom dictionaries on your machine, it's not going to respect those. So that's bad. So it's going to be using the web, which leads us to the second problem. If you're not connected online when you're doing this, you're not going to get the translation. So Okay, so there's two problems. And then the third problem, if you read in here, is that it's not coming to all the Office apps first. So you're only getting it in Word. So it's like, okay, you strike three for me. This is not something that I'm happy about. It's nice we're seeing progress, but in this case, this progress has, for my usability, is going backwards.
The gradual kind of minimum viable product rollout approach just sometimes doesn't work. As you say, it catches you out where you've got these two experiences, and in the meantime, people have got to know that when they're in this application, they do it this way, and in this one, they're getting the new experience. I didn't know this about you, Dan, the sort of closer interest in the language translation side of it. I mean, there's a lot of positives with being able to leverage the, I guess, cognitive services that are behind it. And I think it's probably the same service they use for translating Skype calls on the fly, I think.
Most definitely. Yeah. It is. It's the same stuff. It's the same technology. And it's also the same technology with the translator plugin that I've been talking about for a while for PowerPoint that does live translation while you're presenting. That's fantastic. It's a great service. You do have to be hooked up to online while you're presenting, so that's a drawback. But it is it's great. It's not a step it's kind of a step forward but sideways for me. So change the plane a little bit. It's I don't know. there's, like I said, there's 3 strikes for me right now, and hopefully it will improve. There are ways to prevent this, but I think it has to do with it's not an easy checkbox. So yeah, I think it has to do with doing some group policy and stuff like that to prevent, because it says if administrators want to make sure that this doesn't happen right now, you can take these actions. But anyway, yep, not liking this one.
So your recommendation might be, put a pause on it until all the services are working.
Right now, I mean, at least until they have it available, for PowerPoint, Excel. It's just coming to Word for now. Word, obviously, I think is the logical choice. If you're going to target one, then Word is the logical one. But I'd like to see it across. I'd love to see it respecting some custom dictionaries. I'd love for it to work offline, but
there is a saving grace in this with the rollout options that you have within Office 365. So if you're on what is it called? A delayed first release or something where you're not getting your updates. You're only getting it 3 times a year or twice a year.
Is it called business? What is it called?
Something channel. I don't know. It changed a couple of times.
Yeah, I think is it called business now to where they, I don't remember. Anyway.
Yeah, well, the Windows updates kind of falling into that side of feature updates twice a year. So that'll be a saving grace, and maybe give them enough time to catch up and iron out some issues and get that all in line with all the products. Now, as we're working our way up, what do we got? List view of OneDrive and SharePoint. I wish I'd been able to sort of dig in and see what this looks like, because I didn't quite understand the update. And then when you go through to additional information, check this out.
Oh, this one's perfect.
Yeah, here's a way that you can use OneDrive to navigate and change views. Dang. Additional information? It's not additional.
OneDrive for Basics. This is the first time I have seen one of these updates for the additional information link not be a good link as far as actually providing good content. They've been doing a great job, I believe, of providing those, and we've talked about it before, those additional information links. This time, not so much. So I really don't have too much information about this, other than I see this maybe playing in with what they have shown and promised with Power Apps integration. Maybe it's kind of getting us there as far as viewing content, but I'm not terribly sure.
Yeah, it hints. Well, there was hints of whether it was a mobile view or not, but then they dropped the word mobile in there. So when you read compact view, that to me says a few important columns, and that's about it. I don't know. But it's a thing. It's in the message center, and things make it in the message center because we need to know about them.
We do?
And it's not really one.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not really one that prepares us to let our end users know that this is what to expect. But we are informed, so maybe we'll see a blog post appear.
Well, that's the important part here, is that what's the purpose of this? It's of this announcement. It's to get us ready. Prepare our end users for when they click it and they go, what is this? They prepare for change, right? We've been talking about this, but this one doesn't do it. It doesn't live up to the expectation that we've gotten to now, which is good, useful information. But then if we really want to, we probably do need to dive in. If it does interest us or our users are using that feature, then we need to click that link. We need to get more detail. So this one, not so much. A little disappointing, but hey, no one's perfect.
I think we'll see a blog post appear in the OneDrive blog within Tech Community at some point. But and you do see that these announcements will come out, and sometimes you see the blog post later on. So we'll see. We'll get some more sense out of it. We are making some changes to SharePoint online pages. Okay, descriptive title, but what are we talking about here?
I love
about
this
Edge
one.
and IE.
Yes, I love this one on so many levels. this one is so beautiful. Um, I'm not trying to be over dramatic, but it's just
You're
this
genuinely
is so
happy
great.
about this.
No, no, no. Well, I'm happy in a in a bad
Oh.
way,
Yeah,
in a, you know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, because you read this and you're like, wait. Basically, it is we're changing the mode. So, and on the surface, it's like, okay, we're using the edge mode to maybe bring some. It's a better look. I kind of get that, but then. And they're removing the IE10 mode, which, we're already past IE10, right? At least most people are. Most people
Mhm.
actually are using maybe some other browser,
Except those that are
made
on
by
XP still.
some other company. If you're on XP, then contact me on my blog at daniel@danielglenn.com or the danielglenn.com, and we'll hook you up with some help.
You could
But
actually talk to some government departments about, like, let's say, immigration and some of those screens
yes,
still running kiosk and XP. Anyway,
yes.
backing off.
But so that's great. But okay, here's the impact. If you've developed some web parts, you have to, or use some custom master pages, then there's a possibility that this could break your pages. Okay, so for real, this is big. For real, listen. It's the problem is that if you've done that and you have some not all custom master pages, but some, this could break it. Now, so that part is like, what got me kind of like, oh my goodness. The second bit, though, of how you fix it is really what got me laughing and got me so like chuckling, because what you need to do to prepare for this change, if you've done
One
this,
actual thing that you actually do have to prepare. Most of the time it's saying you have nothing to do, just sit back and relax.
yeah, that number one, open the site in SharePoint Designer. Oh my goodness gracious. Like, Microsoft has now issued an official proclamation that tells you have to open up a site in Designer, which, I mean, we've been doing this for a while, and it's fun and a terribly exciting product that, where you can do some really bad stuff. But I've been using it for a long time to create some workflow, to customize pages and stuff. But we've been going away from it, right? We've been trying to use out-of-the-box technology so that we're not customizing pages. So we're using Power Apps if we want. We're using just using out-of-the-box features. But this one right here, you're going to have to open up the site in Designer and make some changes. Now, there's some kind of simplified. It's not terribly complicated on the changes you're going to need to make here, but so this is not for power users. Sometimes we like to say, I've got 50 sites with customizations. Okay, power users who own those sites, go out and make this change. Here's the instructions. Don't do that with this. This is something that you're going to need to be very careful with this, because if you delete the wrong stuff and then save your changes, there's a possibility your site's not going to work. So you just got to make sure that you're careful when you're making changes on pages with Designer. And so that's a long story to say. That's why I was just kind of chuckling when I saw this. It's one of those things where we're going to have to go back and where Microsoft said, we've been customizing stuff with Designer for a while, and for probably a year and a half, 2 years now, have been saying, okay, let's stop doing that, guys. Okay, let's. Now it's basically go back and fix what you broke, or what you customized. So
Yeah, well, at least they're calling it out for those who may have done it. But thank you for telling us the implications of that behind it, because that's important to know. You don't want your master pages breaking. You still want people to access information. Now, just the last one to finish off before we dive into a couple of announcements things that should have been announced and weren't or shouldn't have been announced. Yeah, new feature. So yeah, the Yammer desktop app that's been out for a little while now. People have been able to download it, in a sort of less direct way. But this is just an announcement to say it's going to be offered and available to all Yammer users. So they'll get a little hint somewhere on the page to say, I consider downloading and using the Yammer desktop app. And I was one of the lucky people or organizations that got to play around with it early. And, first impressions for me were, this is just like a web page wrapper. What's the big deal? It's actually using the same wrapper as Teams, just less dressed up.
No.
Yeah. Actually, there's one advantage of it in Yammer. You can still zoom in and increase the size of the font. You can't do that with Teams. But one big advantage is that it's leveraging the Windows 10 notification center or even the Mac notification center. So much like you get in an email, you get in a message, you get or whatever, you can manage your notifications that way. But the other thing is, and this has been a long time challenge for anything that runs in a browser, you depend on people to open the browser. Whereas the desktop app will sit there happily in the background and you will be able to just dive in and be part of those conversations.
That's what I was going to ask you about is, so for that app sitting there, have you been running it with Teams as well? And how's the performance? Because, and I'll just say why I'm asking this is Teams is really slow for me, especially on load. It takes, 30 seconds for that app to fire up on my machine. And so when you said it runs on the same platform, it's like, oh no. But so that's why I said it that way. I love Teams. It's just the app.
Yeah.
So how's the performance? Is it responsive? Does it take a while? What's the memory usage like?
Let me see if I can just find a safe thing to open up. We've got a group called Skunkworks, so that
don't do that.
Skunkworks. Oh no, Skunkworks is fine. It's not a valid customer.
Oh right, sorry. Yes, okay.
Yeah. So, it's reasonably responsive. I drag my task manager down here and you'll be able to see that it's running usually roughly at less than 200 meg, which, back sort of 5 years ago, don't do that. That's a lot of RAM. Give that back to me. Yes. But, these days it's really not much. It's the advantages I find, as I said, you get your notifications, it's always open. And, it's still really down to how your organization's using it. We've got a group we call What I'm Working On, and that sort of helps us to give situational awareness. Seems like a simple concept, but when we jump in there at the beginning of the day and say, this is what I'm planning to do, it's one place that we can just read and go, da-da-da-da-da. Now, that's something that you might report back to your, manager or up a report, but by being able to put that out there in the open, then everyone knows what's going on. So it's as an app, it's the first impressions are so what? Steve's comment, it hides the branding from the sweet bar. Yeah, so if you have made use of that branding and you've put your logo in and changed your colors to whatever you want, you're not actually going to see that. In fact, that's one thing that people are asking for too, is that they want to change this background for the new Yammer headers and stuff. That's all kind of problems that are across the web as well as the desktop app. Yeah. But this actually opens up a number of other possibilities. So, this was where we first saw the Microsoft Teams tabs and bots and stuff began to be called apps, and now they're called apps and Yammer to start with, and now they're called apps and Teams. But this also means that as an app, they're going to be able to leverage other things like Skype integration. What is it called? Skype integration? Let's talk about that next.
Wait on that one.
Yeah.
I think that branding is actually, I could see that as being the first request of, oh, this is a great app. Where's my branding? Like what, I worked so hard on getting that cross the suite branding, colors, but also logo, where's it at now? Well, it's not in the app. Well, why not? Why can't I have my branding there? I mean, I get it because you're not in the browser, so you're not having access to
You
those
don't have it in Outlook, you don't have it in
apps.
Teams,
Yeah,
you don't have it in
yeah,
OneDrive, for instance. But yeah, I
yeah,
don't know. Yeah, if it's one of those important things, and especially if you're living in Yammer, sometimes people are using that branding. So there is that top branding that used to be around in Yammer for some time, where people were using that as almost like a marketing backdrop or image, and you could just drop something in there, like sort of campaign style. I think that's probably what Steve Collier's talking about there, rather than our 365 menu bar and waffle. So yeah, that's
It's
missing.
not the right. Oh, okay. Because I'm talking about, how the branding, it's in that same level
Mm,
as the menu bar, and the waffle, or whatever we're calling that,
mm,
the sweet menu. But it's that same level that you can color that across all of 365 and put your logo in there, and
mm.
so you can brand some, and that's fair. That's new this year, being able to do that. But if I've done that across, it would be nice to have that in the app. But it's not a showstopper. But
Yeah.
I think it would be a nice to have.
Yeah, well, there you go. It's going to be available to all your Yammer users. They can download it and benefit from some of the local capabilities of having it sitting there running in the background. So, if you are using it as a way to facilitate communication across your organization, at
Yeah.
least it's sitting there and ready to be used. So that was our last message. Let me quickly do our traditional boom, dismiss messages. We're done for the week. However, we'll just finish off by talking about something else that kind of slipped during the week. Big news.
Just a little
Plenty of
bit.
people have heard about it already. What was that,
Yeah.
Dan?
Well, I don't know if we should talk about it. I mean, I guess we should. Everybody
You
knows
can talk
about
about
that.
what has been
What's happened.
shared, published.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so some people started posting pictures of their message center, of
Hmm.
their of messages in the browser, of
Let
when
me
they
see if I can
went.
find that. I got a
Yeah,
screenshot
so
myself. So.
what what we're talking about is the information that Skype for Business would be. Now, I'm going to say it this way, and I don't think it's this, but it would be replaced by Microsoft Teams. I'm doing air quotes.
Mm.
So it is, I think the wording was bad. At least the screenshot I saw. Now, screenshots is that I didn't see it. It wasn't in mine. I tried to make it happen, and it didn't. So, is it exactly what was there? Maybe. But with it, basically they were, I think, in Outlook on the web, or is that what we're calling it now? Outlook on the web. Yes, I think that's what we're calling. I don't
All the
remember what they've
diehards
called it
will
now.
always call it OWA. So yeah.
Yeah, that's OWA. So in Outlook on the web, and they click on the Skype button that was in the top right-hand side, the nice S, and the message there, it looked like that they were greeted with was Skype for Business is now Microsoft Teams. It's like,
Mm.
wait, what? Yeah. So, people are like, wait a minute, what? Is this? It's Skype's gone now, and the fact is, it's not. It's not gone. And you're showing the screenshot of the message
Yep.
center.
Yep. Yeah. I just thought I'd
Is it still in your message
the.
center?
No. So
That was from someone else.
came and went. It came and went.
Okay.
Yeah, just to give sort of to better describe, I guess. So we've got our Skype button, which when people are in an online document, they can chat. They can say, "Oh, look, someone's online. I'm going to talk to them," or making use of the chat feature within OWA. I've always thought that it was a pity that. I mean, Yammer fit quite well there back in 2015 because of the persistent chat. You could have a discussion and it would stay there. And it was a disappointment to see that Skype replaced that because, we can chat using the client on our desktops, and it's very rare that I'm just in a browser and wanting to just chat. But I think it's going to be a good move to bring that back into the Teams aspect of things. That you're having a discussion around a document, that discussion stays there. So that's what
Yeah.
I saw was being replaced.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of what I saw was being replaced, that functionality, and unfortunately, that's not what the wording was,
Mm.
and so that's where it kind of gets into where you're like, wait a minute, what is this saying? And that's not what it said. So I think that's why it was pulled back. Is obviously it was released a little too early, or I
Mm.
guess the communication hasn't been cleared up, and so anyway, I think. I kind of think we need to stop talking about it as far as, I mean, we're talking about it here, and that's fine because we haven't talked about it yet. And it was kind of, I think we need to stop speculating until we find something out,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes when you speculate and speculate and speculate, it gets way past what it is, and then you have to
Yeah.
walk things back.
Yeah.
So I think it is now we're like, okay, it said this. What does this mean? We don't know yet. Let's kind of wait for, the official announcement that was intended to happen.
Mm.
Maybe in the next couple weeks around Ignite. I don't know. I really don't. But you know, mm, I just haven't been talking about it too much because it's obviously things came out too quickly, and I don't think the messaging was right.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, we'll pause it there. We know that things are coming, things are changing, but we need that clarified. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I made me think of a couple of years back, when we created this change alerts group in the tech community. It was running on Yammer at the time, and Steve Collier was part of that too, among other people. It was a way for the community to keep each other up to date. And back
Hmm.
then we had lots of well, occasionally there were updates that would just appear, and then maybe 5 days or so later you would actually get the announcement. And it's because in a cloud world, sometimes you got to get all these things in a row, and you got to
Yeah.
get this service there and that service there, and then together they're going to
Right.
actually work and make that announcement. And they were having trouble trying to roll these things out in a synchronized way so that they
Yeah.
could then make the blog post, but without saying to their competitors, "Hey, this is what we're working on."
Well,
So,
and we've been dealing with this in IT for ever, right? Is that
mm,
you have to get things staged. Maybe for instance, let's talk about like a homepage or something in your intranet. You don't go in and start editing your homepage live so people see you moving stuff around, right? You go in and edit a copy or whatever, check it out if
mm,
it's SharePoint, whatever, and you're changing those things, and then you publish it when you're ready, right?
mm,
And then you make some other changes. So we do these things in the background a lot, where we're doing stuff in the background. It'd be great if no one saw it, so we try to make sure that people don't see it, and then you go live with it. Well, I think it's a similar case here where they were just doing some things in the background, and a button got pushed that shouldn't,
yeah,
and that's where we are. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I think you're right.
Yep. So a couple of weeks away. Maybe it's going to be in the keynote, but expect to hear something in one of the technical
I hope
notes.
so.
Yeah, we'll see.
Hmm.
Definitely got a lot of interest. So yeah, that's the week that was. There's plenty more that happened, but we're encouraging people to become or get into the tech community, Microsoft tech community,
Yep.
because there's a lot of discussion going on in there.
Hmm.
I guess to finish off, you might have noticed that we've gone through a rebrand ourselves. And sorry for any confusion for people that have been following us along, but we felt that we wanted to widen the conversation to more than just Office 365, kind of aligning with Microsoft 365, with other things in the productivity space and work. But we felt it was right to do that before Ignite, so that we could help people to see where we're going with this. And so we're now regarding 365. We're regarding 365 on Periscope. You managed to find us. We didn't lose our Twitter followers because that's how it happens. You change your name. And of course, I went back and
Right.
reserved the old name. We are regarding 365.com on our webpage. And the tough thing is I've had to go through and rebrand things and go back over certain blog posts for Ignite and try and point people to the new
Yeah.
place. But yeah, Dan, thanks for your help with that rebrand and being able to bounce some ideas off that. The initial logo we had was pretty horrible, but now it's kind of simplified now.
Horrible.
Oh, it was. It looked like 4 toasters, sort of, and some kind of propeller windmill thing in the middle. It was like, yeah, Daryl, come on, don't pretend. Get someone else to do this.
No, I think it's a lot of work, and you've done a good job with that. It really is a lot of work, and to get everything lined up, and because we're in a lot of places. We've joked around before about, we're streaming live here on YouTube and Periscope, but that's 2 places. There's many other things that we do, and you mentioned some of those that had to be changed, and so you've done a good job, and I think this is good. I'm happy with this, and it's one less word I have to say when I'm telling people, hey, would you like to do an interview for our channel? And
regarding Office 365, yeah.
Regarding Office 3, we're just regarding 365 now, and and I like it. It's good.
One of my favorite local Microsoft peeps. I'll call his name out. Paul Balkett. I'm talking to you if you're watching. He's been in the Microsoft space for ages. He's been there since Office 365 was a thing. Been there at BPOS. I always chuckle whenever he says Office 365 because he says it like he's the Micro Machine man. The dude that used to describe Micro Machines. So he's like, so Paul Balkett's always like, so you're gonna get onto Office 365, and it's like
like an auctioneer or something.
Yeah, Office 365. So it was a bit like that. Regarding Office 365. Well, now we're just regarding 365.
Right.
So yeah. That was the week it was. Thanks for joining me again, Dan. Thanks for those of you who jumped on. We had Steve Collier, Graham Walsh. We had Bai Pellier for Sabanzer. I'm trying very hard to pronounce some of those words.
You probably should stop.
I probably need the the Skype translator or whatever. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. But yeah, thanks again, and we'll do our little elegant disconnecting from the different streams and pixels. So first of all, bye YouTube. Disconnecting.